Thank you for tuning into Literary Blend, a publishing podcast. I'm your host, Demi Michelle Schwartz. There's no perfect recipe for chasing a dream in the publishing industry, but I hope the conversations on this show give you the ingredients you need to bake yours into reality. So let's flip the page and get into this chapter of Literary Blend. Hi friends, welcome back to Literary Blend. Today's chapter is called Writing and Submitting Romance Flash Fiction. And joining me on the show to chat all about romance flash fiction is Gail Lynn. Hi Gail.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Very good. Doing good. Doing good.
Amazing. I'm super excited to dive into our chat about romance flash fiction. But before we do that, I would love for you to share with the listeners a little about yourself.
Okay. I started writing actually a long time ago. I've always enjoyed writing. And then back in the early 2000s, I started writing romance. I actually set out to write a romance novel, but realized that I didn't have the attention span for that. I couldn't get past chapter three, and after about 20 years here, the story kept staying with me, and the characters kept staying with me, and I just decided one day to sit down and try it again, and it actually came out to like a 1,200 word story. I thought it was perfect, and I was like, well, there you go. It's like flash romance, and I figured, well, that'd be the route I would start to take. And I've always enjoyed short stories and flash fiction anyway. I'm a huge Edgar Allan Poe fan and all, so I've always enjoyed reading the shorter stuff more than novels anyway. I'm someone I could get halfway through a novel, set it down, and never pick it up again, and it wouldn't bother me. So I've got it weird that way, but. Mhm.
Amazing. I'm super curious to learn more about how this led you to start Micromans.
Well, when I started submitting in 2023, I made the decision I was going to start submitting stuff. I always wanted to be published, of course, like most writers do. And I started looking around at different, lit mags and all that. And as I was submitting stuff, and I realized that a lot of my stuff wasn't getting placed because, well, it was romance or it was, two women's fiction or whatever. And even though a lit mag might have said any theme, any topic, what welcome, it really wasn't the case. They were just strictly literary magazines. And I got thinking about it and I was like, it'd be really cool just to start something just for romance. But I had some friends that were romance writers, and they were kind of like, well, most romance writers are just in it for, writing books or the novels, the longer stuff, and to actually kind of like try to make more of a name for themselves and all. So I kind of backed off it a little bit and all, but I kept just thinking about it. Like, if I'm out there's got to be other people too who write flash romance, who like the shorter stuff. So eventually, I just said, it was in 2024 and I got thinking about it and I just said, you know what, I'm gonna give this a try. And I talked to another friend of mine and he kind of said, hey, do it. He goes, you're a great editor, you're good at what you do there. So he goes, you're good at encouraging people. So if anybody can make a go at this, it's you. So go ahead and give it a try. And so I did.
Congratulations on all that. It's been super cool to see how much Micromans has developed, and now we have Kismet Quarterly and so on. Nash. Like, there's so many more things that are coming out of your initial idea for the online magazine, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It amazes me how much it took off and how quickly it took off. I really didn't expect that. I knew that it would, get submissions and it would, maybe be, have a little interest to it. But I mean, I've only been doing it for a year and a half, and the response I've gotten has been tremendous. The views I get to it, to the Substack, and the submissions I get, and they're all terrific. I mean, everyone I get is great. But it really it humbles me. It amazes me. It fascinates me. So many people who submit, they'll say, how much it has inspired them to write or to get back into writing or to try romance writing. They never did that before. So they figured they would try romance after reading some of the stories, or some never wrote flash fiction before, and they just decided, well, I'll give it a try. And I mean, I I feel good about that, but at the same time, I just feel like I can't believe that this has made that much of an impact, on people and all, and it's kind of crazy to me. I mean, it really
Yeah.
is, but
Yeah. No, for sure. And coming from someone who writes fantasy and thriller novels, I'm not your big romance girly, but my books do have romance subplots. And I think for any author who is writing in any genre, if you're incorporating romance into your story, it's really good to explore that genre. And doing flash fiction is a really great way to expand your skills in writing romance, even if you're not writing a full romance novel. Flash fiction is so bite sized to give that genre a shot and develop your skills in
right.
that area.
Yeah, yeah, I've even used that as kind of a way to encourage people to give it a try by saying, if you've never tried romance, or you've wondered if you could write one, or you wanted to try it but weren't sure, give it a try with the flash fiction, and see where it goes. And maybe you'll like it, maybe, and you'll get better ideas, or you'll want to, expand on them or whatever. And so, yeah, it's a great way to jump in and to give it a try with any genre. If you want to give it a try, start small like that.
Yeah, for sure. So, something I want to discuss with you when it comes to writing romance flash fiction is believability. Because when you have a romance novel, you have 300 words or 300 pages, give or take, to have them meet cute and develop the relationship. And you see them start to fall in love and they have complications. And then you have the dark night of the soul and then you get the happy ever after. So, like, we have this whole arc of the romance, but when you're writing a flash fiction, you don't have the space to hit all the beats like that. And so you're basically getting a snapshot of these characters' relationship. And I think it's really important to keep believability in mind with whatever you're writing. It needs to be believable from the standpoint of the characters, who they are, their backstories. Is this when they're just meeting? Have they been together for a while and this is a proposal scene or whatever it is? So, what are your thoughts on keeping the romance believable when writing such a short piece?
Oh, kind of what you just kind of touched on. You would kind of, to me, it's like you don't want them, like they just passed each other in the park, and next thing you know, they're making out on a park bench or something. I mean, that wouldn't really happen. So you don't want to go that fast with it, and like you said, you want it to be believable. So what with the flash fiction, you're kind of just in that moment, you're in that scene, in that, just like I said, that moment. And you kind of have to get into the head of the characters by kind of thinking, like, if that was me and I'm walking in, and how would you feel? What would you do? All the little awkwardness and the quirky, and that's what you try to incorporate into the dialogue, or into, the movements, and so on. So
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing is, speaking about characters, I think, especially in romance, characterization is so important because you not only need to understand the characters as individuals, but you also need to see how they would fit together. How do they complement each other? How do they contrast a little bit that makes them work together? And in a flash fiction, you don't have many words to do this, but dialogue is a great way. Also, interiority is huge to get a glimpse into your protagonist's thoughts, like how are they feeling, what are they thinking in this moment. I think the interiority, especially, is a way to welcome the reader into this character's world and allow them to experience along with them. And that's going to really help with the believability, because if you're in the character's head and you're thinking along with them and feeling along with them and it feels realistic, then readers aren't going to go, this isn't believable. They're going to go, I can totally see this. Like, I'm in their shoes of the character
right,
and I
right.
completely
Hmm.
understand how they're feeling, what they're thinking, and all the things.
Right, right. And that's kind of where, with flash fiction, there's so much more where you have to just show. You can't tell it all like you could with a novel. Like you're saying, you got 300 pages where you can, expand things and explain things or describe things more. In flash fiction, you've got to show it, and you show it through the dialogue, or through the actions, or in between the dialogue, or like you said, the inner thoughts of, Most of the time with flash fiction, it works best to just be in one point of view for the story, so you're just in that one person's head and seeing everything from how they're feeling it and seeing it and how they're interacting and taking the cues from the other character, so yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned the whole show don't tell thing. That's especially important in flash fiction and any kind of writing, but especially with flash fiction because you don't have the space to tell the reader this whole backstory or to describe something in detail and stop the flow of the scene. And so I think flash fiction in general is a really great way to be mindful of word choice. Every word matters. If you have a max word count of 1,200, you can't have any throwaway words. Like all the words in that story need to contribute to telling the story because you only have so much space to tell a complete story. And so being really mindful of what's in there, filler things that can be cut can really help with any kind of writing. Once you get into longer short stories or novels even, being really aware of what is in here, what's necessary and what can be cut.
Right, right. Yeah, like with adjectives, adverbs, all that. I mean, if it's pertinent to the story where you have to describe something, then you could do that. But yeah, you don't want to just be like describing everything. The bluebird flew over your head. You don't want need to do all that. Yeah. So you want to make sure that yeah, what you're saying is important to the story and is uh, helping to create the story and create the plot and move it forward continually and keep it all going.
Yeah, for sure. So now I want to shift and chat about tropes and originality. There are so many romance tropes that we see over and over, like friends to lovers, second chance, all the things. And we see this a lot, and the way to make your story stand out, especially if you're leaning into a familiar trope, is to be original. And so, originality, while being familiar with the tropes and fitting the genre expectations is definitely a balance that I think authors need to be mindful of as they're writing their flash fiction. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's only so many ways that you can kind of meet somebody or that you can run into somebody in a coffee shop. Yeah, I've had like, a few like that, but yet the way they're written is always so unique, if that makes sense. The voice of the writer, and how they see it and make it happen or whatever. It's just and we get such great talent that submit, and I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do come up with all these different ideas, but they do. And like I said, you would think there's only a certain amount of ways you could run into somebody in a coffee shop, but they manage to come up with all these different ways that really do make it cute and make it fun and make it make me smile a lot. So
Yeah, that's great. And I really like how you mentioned the voice because that's the thing that really sets apart the writer's style and pulling the reader not only into the story and the author's narrative voice, but also the character's voice as well. And so I think that's why you really need to be aware of your characters because if you craft unique characters, even if you're tapping into familiar tropes, that story will feel original because it's your unique voice and your own character's voice on the page. And I think the other thing I would mention too is, and this is something I always do when I'm coming up with short story ideas I'm submitting to anthologies and things, is I try never to go with my first idea because my first idea is usually something that may be a little cliche or might be something that I've done in some way before, or my subconscious might be conjuring it because maybe I've read it somewhere before. And so I always try to look deeper and say, okay, this is my initial idea. I kind of like that, but like, what if this? And what if that? Or what if I do this instead? Or maybe instead of it being said here, it's said here. Or maybe this character has this kind of backstory. And so digging deeper into your ideas instead of just going with the first initial thought is a way that I like to ensure that the idea I'm coming up with is as original that I can make it.
right, right. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's a pitfall I fall into in my own writing is I get like a certain idea or a certain feel or a certain however you want to say it stuck in my head, and then all my stories seem to follow that same that same, plot, or that same, you know what I'm saying? Or the characters all seem, to me anyway, maybe to somebody reading it, it would seem different. But to me, when I read them back, it's like, the girl in this story seems an awful lot like the girl in this story, because I just get that stuck in my head. And it makes sense to try to dig deeper, or take it one step further and try to say, well, what if she did this, or what if she's like that, or try to figure out a different way that this character could fit into a different scenario, or a different world, or whatever. So yeah, but yeah, that's something I struggle with myself. So
Yeah, no, for sure. So now I would love to hear a little more on the submission side. Aside from people just reading and following submission guidelines, what tips do you have for successful submissions in the romance slash fiction space?
Well, the biggest thing would be to make sure you kind of know the magazine, and that's with any lit mag. You want to make sure you know what they are looking for. And I do get several submissions that have absolutely nothing to do with romance, and you sit there and you wonder, because you're like, they had to go through the guideline page in order to get to the email to send it. So what were they kind of thinking? But I mean, the main thing is just, if it's flash fiction, if it meets the 1,200 word count max, or whatever the category is. I've got, I think, 4 categories. So as long as it fits the category that you're submitting to, it's the central theme of the whole thing is romance, and it doesn't have to be genre romance. It could just be a love story, but it has to be hopefully upbeat, hopefully happy, and but like I said, like the focus on love and on romance, and as long as it's well written, I mean, just a good quality written piece, you know, you're in, basically. I mean, there have been a lot of stories I've received that personally I didn't like, but they were very well written, and I think about the audience, I think about the readers, I think about the other contributors who encourage the other ones in the comments in the chat, and I think about, well, I might not like it, but that doesn't mean the 700 people that are getting this in their inbox, that some of them aren't going to love it. So if it's well written and it fits the theme, I've really got no problem with it, if that makes
I
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said there at the end because I've been on the submission side for 2 anthologies. And I've had similar experiences where I read a submission and that might not be my complete cup of tea as a reader, but the talent is there. It fits the theme. It's so well written. I felt something while reading it. And I know that there are readers out there who will love it. And so I think that's huge for anybody who's on or in a role of accepting or rejecting things. It's not always about what you like and your subjective
Right.
taste. You really need to think outside of yourself. And if you see an audience for something, you should give that author or poet a chance to reach that audience instead of gatekeeping because it's not your total vibe. So, yeah, I'm all for that. The other thing I would like to briefly mention is for me personally, when I read submissions, I need to feel some kind of emotion. And so that's something else that I try to keep in mind when I'm writing, not only like flash fic romance, but anything. It might be super well written, but if there's not an emotional core to that, then it might not resonate with readers. And so, especially when we're talking about romance and there's love and high emotion involved, that emotion needs to come through on the page. And so that's something else I'd recommend to make sure that comes out, and also get beta readers, critique partners, and have others read it before you submit to, because it's always really great to get another pair of eyes or more on your stories before turning them in.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big thing. And yeah, because it is hard. I mean, you can read something 1,000 times and not realize you spelled mouse wrong. And you know, and to me, I mean, that's no big thing. I mean, I get ones, get pieces, and you see stuff like that, and I'll just, fix it and stuff. I don't make a big deal out of it. I know there are some editors who won't, or who will demand that the writer just rewrite the thing or fix it, and it's like now if I see something simple like that, I'll just go ahead and fix it because I know that they didn't mean that, uh, you know, but yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree with what you said completely. And going back a little bit just there to saying that some of the pieces that I didn't particularly care for, they were actually some of the more popular pieces that were published where they did get a lot of engagement, they did get a lot of comments and a lot of likes and all. So it just goes to show that yeah, it's not just what one person thinks or what one person wants, but yeah, exactly, I agree with you 100% on how you said that it's not just subjective to or it is subjective.
Yeah, it's so
So
subjective.
yeah.
The whole industry, my goodness. Awesome. So, just to wrap up on chat on this, what are some final thoughts you would love to share about writing and submitting romance flash fiction?
Do it.
Yeah,
Just
good.
do it. I mean, if it's something that you've wanted to do or you want to give it a try or whatever, go ahead and do it. And like I said, we're open year round for submission, so we'll be happy to read them.
Yeah, amazing. So, along with the general submissions, you have some other fun projects currently happening and coming up. So, do you want to briefly chat about those?
Yeah. Okay. Like I said, normally Micromance magazine. Like I said, we publish all year with that, and we accept submissions all year. I also have Kismet Quarterly, which is a quarterly in print anthology that I do. That comes out, of course, each quarter. It's actually each season, and that's what it is. It's now this one is strictly sweet genre romance, meet cutes, and they have to be seasonally themed. So, like starting October 1st, will be submissions open for the winter one, and of course, anything wintry. So ice skating, skiing, any of the meeting at a football game, St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day, anything that falls basically between January and March, and that you can make a cute meet cute out of. We want to read it in 1,200 words or less. We've also right now we have September 1st. It just opened our Saltwater and Ash anthology. We kind of decided to give romantasy a little try. No, it's kind of a popular subgenre, so we thought we'd give it a try. I kind of had the idea for it, and a while back, I actually had the title before I even knew what it was going to be about. But so I decided to go ahead and make the anthology for that. It's Saltwater and Ash. Anything mermaids, dragons, any kind of little sea beings, dragon stories, but romance central to the plot. Can take place in our contemporary world and a mythical world, another realm, whatever. I mean, we're open to all kinds of ideas with that. Be creative and just have fun with it.
Amazing. So many fun things. And I know you and I have an announcement to make regarding the holiday anthology. Do you want to share or do you want me to share?
You can go ahead and do it.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, the holiday Kismet anthology officially has a theme song, and it is one of my original Christmas songs called Meet Me at Christmas Time I released last year. So, that's super exciting.
It is, and it's perfect. Like you said, you approached me with it. You said this is the perfect song for the greatest holiday romances ever written. I listened to it and I said, "Oh wow!" I said, "Yeah, this is." That's what I said to you. I said, "We've got to make this like a theme song for it." So
Yeah.
definitely, like I said, I'm working on our little slideshow for
Yes.
it.
So everyone will see that soon.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, before we wrap up, I have your plot twist question. So it's a fun one. So speaking of romance and the seasons, now we're in September. It isn't officially fall yet, but in my brain, it is fall. So if you could go on an autumn themed date, what would your dream autumn date be?
Ooh, that's a good question. Uh, I guess I know it kind of sounds kind of cliched, but I guess like a trip to the pumpkin patch and take a little hayride.
Yeah,
Um,
love it.
yeah. I know.
Amazing.
Like I said, I can't really think of much else, but no, I've always enjoyed stuff like that. So yeah, taking a walk through a pumpkin patch with some hunk and
Amazing. Oh, imagine a pumpkin shaped like a heart.
There you go. Mm,
That'd be super cute.
mm.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining me. Can you please share with everybody where they can connect with you online and find out all of the guidelines and things if they're interested into submitting to your various projects?
Okay. Micromance, you can go to micromancemagazine.substack.com, and I have a tab there that has the guidelines. You could also go to that same address, micromancemagazine.substack.com, and I have a tab that says Anthologies info, and that's where you can find the information for Saltwater and Ash. Also coming in the spring, we're going to have another anthology called Hometown Hearts, which is going to be small town romances. So that's something to look forward to. I'm going to have more information coming there. And I also have a tab there for Kismet Quarterly, and I have the submission calendar, the tentative release calendar for each issue, and all the guidelines there for that. You can follow us on Twitter or X, whatever it's called
It's
now.
called Twitter. X doesn't exist.
Yes, yes.
I'm not
But
conforming. Sorry.
but on Twitter we are at Micromance Mag or at Kismet Quarterly, but actually it's Kismet KTRLY, no vowels in the quarterly part. I'm on Facebook with just Micromance Magazine, and on Instagram, Micromance Magazine. And a quick shout out to my co-editor Katie Fitzgerald, who does a fantastic job helping me schedule everything, all the pieces, and reaches out to the writers to let them know when they're going to have their pieces scheduled. She takes care of all the Instagram for me. And speaking about writing romance and short romance, she actually came out with a quick little crash course that she did on her own Substack. So if anybody wants to check that out, you can check out her personal Substack at Katie Fitzgerald Writes, I believe it is. And she has a great little crash course on writing short romance. So
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this chapter of the show.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun. I've never done one of
Yeah.
these before, and I hope I didn't
Oh,
get too
yeah.
nervous, but
No, you're great. You're so great. Thank you for joining me. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed this chapter with Gail all about writing and submitting romance flash fiction. If you enjoyed our conversation, please consider leaving Literary Blonde a review and giving it 5 stars to help others just like you discover it. Also, if you have friends in publishing who you think would enjoy the show too, please pass it along to them. Thanks for listening, and until we flip to the next chapter, happy reading and writing.